Hello, one and all, and welcome to Film Fragments, a podcast where we take fragments of an actor, director, or genre and tell you our favorites from their catalog. My name is Bryan. I'm your host, and I'm very excited to welcome you guys to today's episode. Today, we're going to be talking about our favorite Aaron Sorkin films, but I'm very excited to welcome the guests. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Film Drunk channel, it's Jonathan. Jonathan, how are you doing today?
Hello. I'm good. I woke up like half an hour ago, so I'm ready to go. Ready to start the day.
We love that. We love doing these podcasts where we're not fully awake. It makes it more fun to do. So I'm super excited to have you on here. I've been a fan of yours for quite some time, and I can't wait to talk to you about this particular topic.
Yeah, it's certainly an interesting topic, especially the past 2 years, but I'm ready.
Absolutely. So before we get into said topic, I like to throw a curveball question to my guests. So with your name being the Film Drunk, what is your go-to drink to get whenever you go out?
Oh God, that is an excellent question. I don't know if I have a go-to. I will say in Vegas, I had a lot of Palomas. I had a lot. I even tried like sex on the beach, which is like very weird, but kind of good. And then honestly, just like stuff with vodka is it just goes in my system. I don't know what it is, but
vodka's the best. Vodka is my go-to as well. Do you have a particular vodka that you like, or do you not care? Like whenever you say vodka Red Bull or vodka cranberry, do you have a preference or no?
Zero
Preference.
Vodka is vodka to me. Yep. 100%.
And it's funny that we're talking about Aaron Sorkin because there was a quote in Molly's Game where someone's like, could I get a bottle of Sky vodka? And she's like, you look more like a Grey Goose person. And she's right, because Grey Goose is the best one to get. It's pricey, but it's worth every penny. Absolutely.
It's a classic.
Definitely. So talking a little bit about yourself, can you tell the audience a little bit about where you're coming from? Talk a little bit about your channel, what you do over at the Film Drunk YouTube channel, and talk a little bit about what got you into film. Why do you love film so much?
Yeah, I started my YouTube channel in the fall of 2020. So during like pretty much the peak of COVID. And I consider myself like early in like the, I don't know what you call it, cinephile journey or whatever. Really, I just kind of realized, especially during college, I was like, man, I just like watching movies. Like, I'm not one of those people where if my friends were like, do you want to watch a movie? I'd be like, nah, I'm good. I'll just always be down to watch one. And then it just kind of got up to that point. I was writing for some like film site during COVID. And I was like, man, if I want this to be like a hobby, I might as well try hard on it. And to me, like writing was very difficult to like get known and really put your personality in it. Maybe just because I'm like a shitty writer. I don't know. But I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it myself. And then I just made a channel, started talking about like the Oscars and everything. And then I had no idea people would actually like want to listen because I was just doing this for fun. I didn't tell my girlfriend, didn't tell my family, didn't tell any of my friends. I just did it completely anonymous. And then I guess some people just liked it. I don't know.
Well, we all love your entertainment. We all appreciate your predictions for the awards, your passion for talking about these movies. And that's why I wanted to bring you on today, because you're passionate about movies and I wanted to bring on the most passionate people that I could find. So going into Aaron Sorkin, like you hinted at, he's been a very interesting topic, especially within the last 2 to 3 years. I would say ever since he started directing films, people have looked at him differently. So what to you made you want to come on to talk about Aaron Sorkin, and would you consider yourself a fan of him?
I am certainly a fan of him. I mean, he is like by far my favorite writer, especially like working today. And the reason I want to talk about it is because of what we just talked about, because I feel like the shift on him has been so interesting to me, some of which I absolutely get, and some of which I am a little confused by, like why he is such a villain now, which is so interesting to me. So honestly, that's kind of why I want to talk about it, because to me, he's made like some like the best films ever. I mean, obviously, like we'll get to it, but obviously, like no movie that like film Twitter embraces more than like The Social Network. I see that Andrew Garfield scene probably like once a month. So it's just one of those deals where he's such an interesting figure that I'd love to come on and talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I agree with you. I don't know why a lot of people look at him as like the bad guy when it comes to making films and everything. He's certainly not my favorite person working today, but I do think that he is one of the best writers that we've ever had. He's written some of the
Hmm.
best screenplays I think I've ever read or listened to. His dialogue to me is like music to my ears because you think
Yeah.
about it, you're like, how could someone write something like this? And my favorite thing about Aaron Sorkin is that when it comes to his screenplays and even the films that he's directed, his dialogue moves so frenetically and so quick. It's so sharp. There are times where you watch a film that he either wrote or directed, but I mean, he wrote all three films he's directed. So basically, whenever you watch a film where you hear Aaron Sorkin dialogue, it moves so quickly. And in your head, you're like, how are we already halfway through this movie? I feel like I just started it 15 minutes ago. Like, that's the power of Sorkin. That's why a lot of people respect him so much as a writer. And I do like the guy a lot. I would say that I'm a fan of him as well. Do I think that he's terrible at what he does behind the camera? No, he's not. I think he's still getting his foot in when it comes to directing,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I get excited anytime he's attached to a project.
Right. I feel exactly the same way. I mean, he's by far definitely not my favorite director, even though I think some of it has been a little bit harsh, but it's, his next movie that he directs, whenever that happens, like, I'm going to watch it, like 100%, I'm going to watch it. And hopefully you'd like to believe that with each movie, he gets a little bit better. So I don't know. His dialogue is just on a different level compared to anyone else to me. And that's why, as a writer and as a writer only, he's actually my favorite.
Yeah, definitely top three writers for me, hands down. Like maybe even top two. I don't know who the other one would be, but he is hands down in my top two. So the way this is going to work, everybody, is that we're going to go through our 5 through 1. Now, if Jonathan has a film that's higher on my list, I'm going to say pass. And then if there's a film that's higher on his list from mine, he's going to say pass after that. So, Jonathan, I have to ask you a very important question. What is your number 5 favorite Aaron Sorkin film of all time?
So to me, this is actually like the hardest part, number 5, because he hasn't done like, he doesn't have like a catalog of like 25 or 30 movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes down to like, is the American President my number 5? Is it like Charlie Wilson's War, like Chicago 7? So I actually had to think about number 5, which is the hardest one, but I ended up going with Molly's Game, which is the first movie that he directed. While I don't think it's perfect, Jessica Chastain, who is one of my favorites, and if people followed me during the last Oscar season, they know this. I think she is absolutely amazing in it. As you said, this movie is, considering it's almost 2.5 hours, it is so rewatchable. It flies by. It's so fast. And honestly, even though a lot of the poker stuff goes right over my head, it's just so interesting to me. I don't know. Maybe I just secretly love gambling, but it's, to me, Molly's Game is actually probably his best directorial movie, I guess, in my eyes. So Molly's Game for me would be number 5.
I'm gonna pass on this one. We'll be talking about it very, very soon. It's not that much higher on my list, but we'll be
Okay,
talking about it very shortly.
fair
So,
enough.
so speaking of the films that he's directed, my number 5 is his second directorial effort, The Trial of the Chicago 7. When I was in high school, I learned so much about this in my senior year, and I was so fascinated with this story. And I remember reading that for a long time, Steven Spielberg was actually supposed to direct this. Sorkin wrote this script like 15 years ago, and then the writer's strike happened, and then it just got pushed off for the time being. At one point, Will Smith was supposed to be in this. There was discussions that Heath Ledger was going to be in this, so that just comes to show you how long ago this was. And then Sorkin picked this up himself, and the cast assembled here. And that's the thing with Aaron Sorkin films, like whether it's him writing or directing, the cast assembled for all the films that he's involved with are pretty incredible. And the cast here is really strong, like a great ensemble. Eddie Redmayne, Sacha Baron Cohen, Mark Rylance, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Michael Keaton, Frank Langella, Jeremy Strong, fantastic ensemble. But I think this film coming out at the time it did was actually pretty pivotal, considering that this takes place in the 60s, 70s. This takes place so long ago, but yet it finds a way of still being prevalent to what's going on today, unfortunately. And I think the dialogue is engrossing. I think it's paced very well. The cinematography is a little bleh to me, but I think the performances and the writing are what carry this movie. Sacha Baron Cohen, I'm so happy that he got nominated for an Oscar for this. I think his performance was on a whole other level. And I don't know if you know this, but Seth Rogen was actually supposed to be in this movie, but he stepped away, and then Jeremy Strong replaced him. Not a bad replacement whatsoever. But yeah, The Trial of the Chicago 7 is my number 5.
Yeah, that was probably like the toughest cut to me. It was really between that and Molly's Game for number 5. I really liked Trial of Chicago 7. And that's where I really saw people like turn on Aaron Sorkin, where people are like, oh my God, this movie is so trash. It is like the worst out of the Best Picture nominees. And that one, I'm just like, okay, I don't really understand what's going on. Because I watched it and I was like, wow, like that was a really good movie. And then I didn't really think too much of it. I mean, I don't know. It wasn't my favorite, but certainly not like a bad movie. I think it was in like my top 10 of the year. I really love his like court drama stuff. I just love court dramas in general. But when Aaron Sorkin is the one penning the script, it's hard for me not to like it. So Chicago 7 was probably be my number 6. And if you ask me tomorrow, I might flip Molly's Game in Chicago 7. So it's one of those deals.
Yeah, and I agree with you with him on court dramas. A film that's not on my list, unfortunately, is A Few Good Men, and that's a very compelling courtroom drama. Like the courtroom scenes in that are impeccable. They are so great. It was really hard to minute that from the list, but I haven't seen that film in probably since I was in high school. So like 6-7 years ago. Trial of Chicago 7. I've only seen it once. I saw it when it came out a year and a half ago, but it found a way of really sticking with me. People calling it the worst Best Picture nominee of last year. Come on, seriously. I mean, it wasn't my favorite that got nominated, but I don't think it was the worst. Like, guys, like seriously, I swear people are so dumb. So going into our number 4s, what is your pick?
Yeah, Chicago 7 is better than Nomadland. My number 4, I like Nomadland. I like Nomadland.
So do I. I like Nomadland too.
Yeah. My number 4, my like 2 through 4 is like super interchangeable. Like to me, my top 4 movies for Aaron Sorkin, like absolutely locked, but the order for 2 through 4 can really flip. So I really had to think about this. I went with Moneyball as my number 4. He wasn't the one to completely like write the script from scratch, but he definitely rewrote a good chunk of it. And you can certainly see that during the movie. I am a sports guy, 100%. Admittedly, baseball is probably my least favorite sport. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but I cannot do the baseball thing. I just really can't do it. But with considering everything else that I love about like sports and like the analytics of it all, which is like somewhat of a debate, especially in like basketball, where like analytics versus like the eye test and just what you know versus what the stats say. To me, kind of putting that in with an Aaron Sorkin script directed by Bennett Miller, who I think is a pretty good director, with Moneyball, and Brad Pitt, probably my favorite performance from Brad Pitt. That's just like, I don't want to sound cliche, but like a total movie star performance where the whole movie kind of just rides on him and he just has to use his Brad Pittness and his charm to just really just get the audience behind him. To me, Moneyball is probably like the most like not engrossing, but just a topic where I shouldn't really be interested in it because, like I said, I do not like baseball. But Moneyball to me is like the rest of the movies on the list to me are like actually like 5 stars. And I love Moneyball. I just rewatched it like a few months ago and it's still just as good as I remember. So Moneyball for me is number 4.
Pass.
All right.
So my number 4 is a film you just talked about, and that's Molly's Game. So I actually hadn't seen this film until about 4 hours ago. And I'm a big Jessica Chastain fan. She's probably my favorite actress working today. She's also just so down to earth and so humble. And I'm biased because I met her 2 months ago, and I cried after meeting her because I was shaken. I was like, there's no way a celebrity could be this polite, but oh my God, she's great. That's tough to say. Maybe the best acting she's ever done comes from, I don't know. It's really tough. It's one of her best performances, hands down.
Yeah,
I don't know how she didn't get nominated for this. I'm sorry. I looked over the best actress lineup a few minutes before you hopped onto the call. And I'm like, all right, let's take out Meryl Streep for The Post and let's replace her with Chastain. because I love Three Billboards, and I'm very happy Frances won. That wasn't my personal favorite performance nominee, but I liked her. I liked Sally Hawkins, Saoirse Ronan, and Margot Robbie. I liked her too. I wasn't big on I, Tanya. I'm kind of in the I, Tanya's okay territory, but her performance.
Me too, actually. I just
Yeah.
watched that. Me too. I totally agree with you. It's
Yeah,
okay.
like it's fine. Like it's a fine sports film, but Margot's performance is
Yeah, she's
unbelievable.
great.
But going back to this, like you, I'm not really big into poker gambling projects either. I mean, there's a few movies revolving around gambling that I like. I mean, Uncut Gems obviously is one of the best. Rounders from the 90s with Matt Damon and Edward Norton is very cheesy, but I think it's pretty entertaining for what it is. And living in New Jersey, you come across a lot of gamblers because Atlantic City is here and everything. But yeah, poker gambling just has never been my thing. But I found this movie to be so compelling and so interesting. And like you said, it moves very quickly. And it's a long movie. It's 2.5 hours. And I think Jessica really shines in this role. I will say that I can understand some people being annoyed with how it jumps back and forth from flashback to flash forward. I get that. It could be a little jarring at times, but I think the way it's edited and put together actually benefits the movie. I think it works really well by jumping back and forth. And again, another ensemble here that's fantastic. Idris Elba is the GOAT. I don't understand why he doesn't have an Oscar nomination to his mantle. He is
100%.
a fantastic actor, and I would have hands down nominated him for this. Kevin C.
Yep.
Good old dad, Kevin C. Great for his little time on screen. Very weird seeing Michael Cera here. I had no idea he was in the movie until I watched it today. And it's funny because now you realize that both Superbad leads have spoken Aaron Sorkin dialogue, which is crazy to me. Like, you wouldn't even put two and two together, but I mean, that's kind of cool, I guess. Yeah, the ensemble here is Jeremy Strong once again, going all full Kendall Roy here. Fantastic performance. And little tiny screen time. Joe Carey, aka Steve Harrington from Stranger Things. Why is he in this? I have no idea, but I mean, it was kind of cool seeing him in something that wasn't Stranger Things. No, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was great. I think the screenplay was great. It wouldn't have been my pick to win, and it didn't end up winning. I'm happy with Call Me by Your Name winning the award that year. But yeah, I really liked Molly's Game, and I feel like when you look at the films that he's directed, everyone was like pretty high on him. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, Molly's Game is so good. It's so great. Fantastic directorial debut." Then it would just slowly go downhill. People were like, "Try Chicago 7," and then everyone hates Ricardo's. We'll talk about that later on. But I loved Molly's Game. I thought it was great. Jessica Chastain, literally my favorite person ever. Great film. Truly great film.
Do you know who Michael Cera is actually supposed to be, like that person in real life?
Yeah, I looked him up. He's like a composite of like Tobey Maguire, Leo, and Ben Affleck.
Yeah, I just think that's so funny that they did that and are like, Michael Cera, like that's the one. He's the guy right there. And also, speaking to that, I forgot that Best Actress lineup. If we did replace Meryl Streep, who, you know, once again, is probably like the GOAT. If we replaced her in The Post, where she's not great, or it's just whatever, with Jessica Chastain and Molly's Game, that is an amazing Best Actress lineup.
Oh, yeah.
I totally forgot that lineup until you started saying it. I was like, oh my God, if we replaced, oh man, that would have been amazing.
Like, I remember that morning when the nominations came out, and they were like, Sally Hawkins, yes. Frances, yes. Margot, yes. Saoirse, yes. Meryl, oh, okay. Well, yeah, almost perfect.
I know,
it was so close. Yeah. So close to being perfect. But yeah, that would have probably been the best actress lineup of the past, I don't know, however many years. Like,
yeah, that would have been amazing.
I would have been like, I don't even care who wins because they're all great performances.
Yeah, exactly. Can't lose.
All four of them are great. So now going into our number threes, what do you got?
All right. You know, I almost made a last minute switch like 5 minutes ago with this, but I'm just gonna keep it as is. Don't want to overthink this. I might like this movie more than like 90% of people. We'll see on your list. But number 3 is Steve Jobs to me. And Steve Jobs really could be my number 2, because I think the best moments in Steve Jobs are like some of the best things that Aaron Sorkin has like ever done. And obviously credit to Danny Boyle who directed the movie. Obviously, it's just since it's a Sorkin podcast, we're keeping it mostly to Sorkin. To me, I don't want to like hang up too much on Oscars here because, at the end of the day, Oscars don't have a say in like what the best movies are. But how the fuck did Steve Jobs, like at least the screenplay, didn't even get nominated for it, which was just a travesty that just haunts me to this day. I don't understand it. To me, and I know I probably am a fan of this movie more than most, even though it is liked. Steve Jobs like might just be his like second best script ever. It is like every line in that movie when I first watched it, I was like, okay, that's like music to my ears. Like I'm getting like an ear boner just like listening to it. And like I know when people say like his movies are like, if you replaced an action scene with his words because that's how it makes you feel in terms of how tense it is and thrilling. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever, like pretentious bullshit. I don't really get that. But Steve Jobs, oh my God, that it is so true. It is some of the best things. I mean, Michael Fassbender is like one of my favorite actors. I love him. He probably should have won Best Actor. I do like that Leo has an Oscar, so I can't complain that much. But I mean, in a vacuum, he probably should have won. And I think that's where the consensus is at now. But Steve Jobs, like it does feel like a play in like 3 separate acts. I really don't care. I don't understand the criticism of this feels like a play. I really don't care. It is just each act has something so great. And the reason I keep it at 3 and not at 2, even though I'm talking it up, is just because to me, this one and my number 2, it starts off so great and the middle is so great that in comparison, the ending might not feel as on par with the rest. But to me, Steve Jobs is one of Aaron Sorkin's like best things he's done. And honestly, one of Danny Boyle's best movies in recent years.
Pass.
All right, let's go. All right.
Pass.
You got a fan.
Yes. Oh. Number 3 is Moneyball for me. I'm the complete opposite of you. I'm not really a big sports fan. As a kid, like if you met me like 10 years ago, I was a massive sports fan. Huge sports fan. Would follow pretty much all of them, including baseball. Baseball and football would be the ones I would follow. Hockey I would watch sometimes. Basketball I would watch sometimes. But baseball and football were the top 2 for me. So I remember going to see this movie, and I'm like, oh, I like Brad Pitt. I like Philip Seymour Hoffman. Why is Jonah Hill in this? He's never done a drama. This is weird for me. But I remember walking out of the movie being really fascinated with it. And I'm not a guy that follows the Oakland A's. I could care less what the hell they're doing and everything. And like you said, obviously this wasn't written just by Sorkin, but you could just see so much of Sorkin throughout this, hear so much of Sorkin throughout this script. And I actually agree with you. I think this might also be my favorite Brad Pitt performance. I think he was incredible in this. Billy Beane, kind of a scumbag, but you kind of felt for him throughout the movie, especially when you get to see more of what's going on with him behind closed doors with his daughter and everything else. I loved Jonah Hill in this. I was very happy that he got a lot of recognition throughout the season for this. That was a fantastic out of left field performance from him. He injected some of his humor into this, but he was also very good in the serious moments. And God, Philip Seymour Hoffman, tragic loss, truly one of the best actors we ever had. Great job with him as well. And this is probably the best acting Chris Pratt's ever done. I'm just saying it might be the best acting he's ever done. Although, I mean, I don't know if this tops his work in Parks and Rec, but that's a different discussion for a different day.
Oof, true.
But yeah,
True.
I love Moneyball. One of the best sports films ever made. Love the imagery as well. Fantastic cinematography here. And yeah, the dialogue is just so frenetic and so quick, and you're so engrossed, and you don't even have to be a baseball fan to like this movie. You don't even have to be a sports fan. You don't even have to follow anything that's going on, but you're just so engrossed with the story and the characters and the performances and the writing. And Ben Miller, he hasn't directed a lot of movies, but I think he's a pretty overlooked filmmaker. I think this might be my favorite film that he's directed. I haven't seen Capote, and I actually really liked Foxcatcher, although I would say that's a one-time watch for me. But yeah, I love Moneyball so much. It's so good. It's really funny too. Surprisingly great blend of humor and heart. And I really love this movie so much. In 2011, A pretty good lineup for best pictures. Although, I mean, they snubbed Deathly Hallows Part 2, 50-50. They snubbed a few gems, but I think for what they did pretty great. And yeah, I love Moneyball so much.
Yeah, yeah. I was just actually going to ask you what your thoughts are on that best picture lineup. What just I don't want to get off top, but like, what do you think of the artist?
I like the artist, but I've only seen it once.
Yeah, I thought it was
I
fun.
do I do like the artist a lot. I
Yeah,
really enjoyed it, but it's not a very memorable best. I mean, I don't know who I would have awarded best picture that year in terms of I don't even remember the list, to be honest.
me neither. I just know like the Tree of Life and Moneyball and the artist. I probably.
I could not get through the Tree of Life. I tried.
Oh, really?
I tried, and I mean, it wasn't bad. It was fine, but
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
one of
know. The
those
only thing I
things.
really remember about that Best Picture lineup was that Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close got nominated, and it shocked
Oh,
everybody around
that's
the
that's
world.
right. That's right. Yeah, that's a wild pick.
I'm looking up the nominees right now, just to see what got nominated. Let's see, Best Picture. All right. The Artist, The Descendants, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, The Help, Hugo, Midnight in Paris, Moneyball, Tree of Life, and Warhorse. I do love Midnight in Paris. That's a great movie. And The Descendants is also a great movie. I'm a big Alexander Payne fan.
Yeah, yeah, that lineup. Mm,
I don't know who I would have given it to. I love Midnight in Paris. I know talking about Woody Allen isn't the best subject, but that's a great movie. And Hugo's great too. So,
yeah, I think
I
Moneyball
mean,
gets my pick.
yeah, Moneyball would probably be like number three for me. Like it
Mm,
would probably be The Descendants, Midnight in Paris, and then
fair.
Hugo. Or no, Moneyball, and then Hugo, and then the artist would probably be number five for me.
Yeah, I feel
But it
that.
is it is a very good film. But
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
liked
I
it.
mean that whole lineup was kind of interesting that year. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. I don't know. Okay, so now our top
All
two.
right.
This is going to be fascinating. So obviously, Jonathan knows what one of my picks is, but I'm really curious to know what his number two is. So, what is your number two favorite Aaron Sorkin film of all time?
From just our recent conversation, I guess it's not on your list. I have A Few Good Men at number two. And like I said, two through four really be interchangeable. And maybe this is recency bias because I just rewatched this with some of my friends like a few weeks ago, maybe I want to say. And like I said, I am a slut for a courtroom drama. And this one just absolutely gets me. Maybe I'm on like a Tom Cruise wave because of Top Gun Maverick, but I kind of miss him doing these kind of movies where he just is
Same,
like, where he's acting. And I don't say that as a disrespect because I love the damn Mission Impossible movies. Give me to him
same.
now. But I do miss him in these like A Few Good Men, Jerry Maguire type roles. And seeing him and then Jack Nicholson, obviously it's iconic, but You Can't Handle the Truth thing. But the way everything builds up to that final case, to really a showdown between Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, to me is like just it was just so satisfying and good to watch. And if I didn't rewatch A Few Good Men, this probably would be a little bit lower on the list because I definitely did really love it when I first watched it. But that rewatch and just like seeing my friends who have never seen it before, seeing how they're reacting to it, like audibly being like, "I'm scared," like that's what they're
Oh,
saying.
it's a
Uh,
terrifying movie. It's also incredibly
Absolutely.
depressing. It's so depressing.
Yep. Yep. Pretty depressing subject matter when you really think about it. It has that like kind of light flair with Aaron Sorkin, so you don't really think of it as that. But when you really step back and look at it, pretty crazy subject matter for that. But I mean, just the way that everything flows in the dialogue, especially in those courtroom scenes, like you can see why he Chicago 7 like was, lauded despite what like Twitter may say. To me, A Few Good Men is just I don't know. It has some of the best moments. Like as a peak, it's right up there with Aaron Sorkin for me. So I hope Tom Cruise goes back to that also.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Tom Cruise's best performances outside the action genre, this is definitely like one of the best he's ever done. I really do like A Few Good Men a lot, and I actually read the play in high school, and that's how
Mhm.
I ended up seeing the movie. And just reading the play, I mean, it's a whole different perspective. And then you watch the movie, and it's just on a whole other level. And I always forget that Rob Reiner, out of all people, directed this because this doesn't.
Yeah.
When you think of Rob Reiner, I mean, you don't think of A Few Good Men, right away at least you think of like The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, This Is Spinal Tap, Stand By Me. I mean, when you see the kind of
Yep.
films that he's done besides like these coming of age, heartfelt romances, comedies, whatever, you see that he directed something like Misery, which, by the way, rest in peace, James Caan. I mean, oh my God, Misery is fantastic. One of the best
Yeah.
Stephen King movies. And then you see him doing this, and it's really incredible. And yeah, Jack Nicholson, of course, fantastic performance. Would you say that this is your favorite non-action movie starring Tom Cruise?
Um, I think I would. I think I would. I do really love Magnolia, and I do
Oh my
also
God.
love Jerry Maguire.
I love both
But
of those
in
movies
terms
too.
of like, yeah, in terms of just rewatching it, like I'm sorry, Magnolia is like really long. So
It
if you
is.
like, if you asked me for either, I would probably just lean towards A Few Good Men. But I think it would be actually.
Yeah, for me, it's tough. Even though this is kind of considered an action movie, it's more so a thriller. I'm a big fan of Collateral. That's one of my favorite films
Yeah.
of all time.
Mm,
And he should have been nominated for that, but that was a whole other stacked year for the Oscars, and that's a different discussion for
yeah.
another time. But yeah, A Few Good Men is fantastic, and if anyone out there hasn't seen it, I don't really like it when people quote movies that they haven't seen. Like they're like, "You can't handle the truth." Like, listen, if you haven't seen the movie, shut the fuck up. Like seriously, it's like everyone saying "Run Wilson, run Forrest, run" without having seen Forrest Gump. Like,
Yeah.
shut the fuck up and
True.
sit down and watch. So my number two is Steve Jobs, which we brought up a little while ago. How the fuck was this not nominated for best screenplay? Like you said, like this was arguably maybe the best screenplay of that year. And I'm trying to think of what won best adapted screenplay that year. Um, what the hell won? Oh, Big Short.
Oh, that's right.
I
Yeah.
mean, and I like The Big Short, but
Come on.
this was a better screenplay.
Absolutely.
This
Yes.
was
Come on.
literally this is literally one of the best screenplays ever, in my opinion. I will go as far as saying ever for me. Maybe I haven't seen a lot of movies. I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy, but I think that in terms of the dialogue, this is so magnetic and so quick and just so in your face, and it's so compelling and so good. And the performances from everybody, Michael Fassbender, I agree with you 100%. He should have won the Oscar for this. I love Leo. I mean, who doesn't? I thought he was great in The Revenant. I'm happy that he has an Oscar, but let's be honest, that's not the film that you should have rewarded his first Oscar for. The Revenant is like a movie that you give someone like their third or fourth Oscar for, not their first.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Michael Fassbender's performance in this, I mean, I've told many people this. He doesn't look anything like Steve Jobs. He doesn't sound anything like Steve Jobs, but I mean, he doesn't have to because the performance is so good that you don't
Yeah.
see Michael Fassbender, you see Steve Jobs. One of my favorite sequences of the past 10 years in cinema is in the second act of the movie where it's him and Jeff Daniels in the hallway. And
Yes. Oh my God.
Jeff Daniels says, "You're gonna end me, aren't you?" And then Steve Jobs says, "You're being ridiculous. I'm gonna sit center court and watch you do it yourself." Just the delivery of that and the writing, I'm like, how? How?
That is
What goes
the
on in
scene.
his head? Like what goes on in Sorkin's head to give him this great dialogue? And when I rewatched the movie after it came out on Blu-ray, and I think the Oscar nominations had already come out, I was like, how was he not nominated? Like, just I don't
It's
understand.
insane.
And the fact that it didn't get more nominations than it should have is that's also really disappointing. And it was a massive box office flop. And I remember going to see this opening weekend, and it was just me and two other people in the theater. And I was like, wow, this is
Mm.
really sad. Like, it's so sad. I was under the impression that maybe more older audiences would be there. I went to like a 10 a.m. showing, and there was like no one there. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why isn't anyone
Yeah.
going to see this? Like, this has great actors, great filmmaker, great screenwriter, a very popular figure, and no one saw it. Nobody saw it. And it's really sad because it is one of the best films of the past 10 years, in my opinion.
Hmm.
I really think that it should have won screenplay. I would have given
Yeah.
Fassbender the Oscar. I also would have given Kate Winslet an Oscar for this because her performance is on a whole other level as well.
Yeah. She's
And
great.
Jeff Daniels was great. He was in two of the best films of that year, this and The Martian. And Seth Rogen, I mean, I was a little worried going in because this was the first time I saw him in like a full serious performance. I was like, I don't know how Seth Rogen's going to be as Wozniak, but the sequences where it's just him and Fassbender screaming at each other, I mean, I was left shook. My heart was racing, and I'm just like, okay, I've underestimated Seth Rogen. He is a great dramatic actor. I'm excited to see what he does in The Fablemans later this year. And
Yeah.
I love Steve Jobs so much. And I really wish more people would talk about it. I wish more people would watch it because, again, the talent in front of and behind the camera should just get your attention. And Danny Boyle, one of my favorite filmmakers, for like, I love a lot of his movies, and this is hands down one of the best. But yeah, Steve Jobs is great. It makes me sad talking about it, knowing that it got barely any love during that award season. And
Yeah.
at least we both cherish it. That's what we'll have.
Right.
We'll take away from this is that me and Jonathan both cherish Steve Jobs. Maybe not the
Absolutely.
person, but the movie itself. Like, work of
Yep.
art. Truly
See,
fantastic.
this is why the Academy messes up, because they had to reward Leo with an Oscar because he should have won for The Wolf of Wall Street. That,
Absolutely.
to me, he just should have won for The Wolf of Wall Street. Then we don't have this little mix up. Then we could just give Michael Fassbender the Oscar, and everything would be just so nice. It'd just be perfect. But they had to fuck it up, and then they just end up robbing people. So that's what it is, though. That's life.
Yeah. So now it's time to talk about our favorite Aaron Sorkin film, which is obviously Being the Ricardos. So Being the Ricardos,
right.
great film. And no, seriously.
Amazing.
So Jonathan, why do you think everybody loves The Social Network so much? Like, why do you think everyone looks at this film and says that this is arguably maybe the best film of the entire century so far?
You know, I could never have imagined this movie would have this kind of legacy. Like, never could have guessed that. When it came out, I was like, what, 12, 13? And I ended up seeing it like somehow that year. A 12, 13-year-old who does not care about movies, really. My favorite movie that year at that time, I don't know, probably Toy Story 3, which is actually an amazing movie. But
It is.
the fact that I even like saw The Social Network, and my little brain at 12 or 13 was like, wow, that was like a really good movie. It's just like, it kind of speaks to everything. Obviously, like, now you fast forward till now, I'm an old man, I'm 24. David Fincher, maybe my favorite director, one or two, either one. Aaron Sorkin, my favorite writer. Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield. Just, it's almost like everyone I love almost working at like the peak of their powers. To me, this is the, like, hands down the best Jesse Eisenberg has ever been. This is one of Andrew Garfield's best performances ever. Should have been nominated. Aaron Sorkin, his best script ever. David Fincher, obviously it's debatable because Fincher has so many absolutely amazing movies, but if someone said this is their favorite of his, you're not going to bat an eye. This might be my favorite of his. It's just everyone coming together just to make this movie, just absolutely amazing. And I can't believe the legacy it's actually had. And maybe its legacy is strengthened because it lost to The King's Speech. Maybe if it just ended up winning Best Picture, maybe, you know, who knows, right? Like, who knows? Maybe then it just becomes like, oh, that was like a great movie, and that's kind of all we think about it. But it almost has this like tragic air to it because it lost to The King's Speech, which is a movie most people like, not me. I do not like that movie. I genuinely do not like that movie. I think Green Book is a better movie than The King's Speech. That is just me. That's an unpopular opinion, I know. So maybe that certainly helps. But I don't know. Like, I felt like this movie just came together so seamlessly. From what I read about the production and pre-production and post-production, I felt like they just got the people they wanted. The studio was worried about the length because the script was so long, and Fincher's basically like, and Sorkin was like, don't worry, this movie's going to be under 2 hours and we'll prove it to you. They had Aaron Sorkin go through the whole script, got it like an hour and 59 minutes. And then that's what the runtime ends up being. I don't know. It just kind of, it's just like a perfect movie to me. I don't really know what's wrong with it. And obviously the Andrew Garfield scene, I see it every time on Twitter, and every time I will favorite that tweet, I will listen to it, and I will just treat it like the gospel because it is that good. It is one of the best scenes of like the 21st century. And to me, this is absolutely one of the best movies of the decade.
Yeah. Pretty much nailed everything on the head with that one. Yeah, The Social Network. I mean, what could you say that hasn't been said already? Um, I was around the same age as you when this movie came out, and I had just joined Facebook not too long before this movie came out. And I remember everyone's like, "Oh, they're making a movie about Facebook." I'm like, "Why the fuck are they making a movie about Facebook? Why do we need that as a movie? Like, do we really need that?" And at the time, I wasn't really following films. I was like, "Who is this David Fincher? Who is this Aaron Sorkin guy?" The only person I knew at the time that was attached to this movie was Justin Timberlake. I didn't know anyone else in this movie, but that was
Right,
the
that's
only
right.
name that I had known when. Oh well, and Brenda Song because Sweet Life.
Yep.
That was a
Sweet Life. Yep.
phenomenal group of shows. Fantastic, both of them. And I remember going into the movie and I went to see one of my parents and I walked out of it like my eyes were so watery because I was like, I'm actually like really moved by this movie about Facebook.
Hmm.
Like, why? Who? I'm like, okay, I need to watch everything this David Fincher guy makes. I need to read everything this Aaron Sorkin guy writes. And I gotta follow all these actors. And it's one of the best films I've ever seen. It's one of my favorites of all time. Like top 10. It's in the top 10 for me.
Same.
I do think that it was the best film of the 2010s. I can understand people saying that it wasn't for them. I totally understand that, and it's totally valid. But I think if you ask a lot of people what their like top 10 or even top 5 favorite films were of the 2010s, a lot of people put this in the top 10 at least the top 10. And I agree with you. It should have won Best Picture. It should have won Director. Everyone's been talking about this since the Oscars over 10 years ago. I don't hate the King's Speech. It's not one that I go back to a lot. I don't think it's a Best Picture winner, though. You know,
No.
it's.
Director is more blasphemous to me.
I agree. I
Oh my
agree.
God.
Like, if you're gonna give King's Speech picture, whatever, but give
Yeah.
Fincher the Director award. Seriously, like, but when you look at the Oscars that it won, besides the screenplay, and the screenplay, I mean, oh my God, it might honestly be my favorite screenplay of all time.
Mhm.
Like the line delivery of everything is great. Obviously, yeah, the Andrew Garfield scene where he storms in and breaks the laptop and just screams from the top of his lungs. I mean, that's one of the best scenes ever on screen. Andrew Garfield, I think I might be more angry with the fact that he wasn't nominated over the fact that this didn't win Best Picture. Because
That's
I
fair.
mean, come on, come on. You're telling
Yeah.
me like if anyone from the Academy is listening to this, I'm sorry. Are you really telling me that Andrew Garfield was not deserving of a nomination? Hell, I would have given him the fucking award too. I would have given him the win,
Yeah.
like hands down.
Yep.
And I'm happy that Jesse Eisenberg got nominated everywhere. He was great. I thought Justin Timberlake did a surprisingly good job for his role. I think like if you're gonna cast anyone to play Sean Parker, someone like Justin Timberlake definitely fits that role. Um, Even though this person is unfortunately not the best subject to talk about anymore, and he's in two of my favorite films of all time, and there's two of him on screen in this movie, so it's twice as hard to talk about him. But
Oh yeah.
Army Hammer is the Winklevi, incredible, like truly incredible,
Mhm.
like fantastic. The score by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross,
Oh
one of my favorite
yeah.
scores of all time.
Come on.
The
Hmm.
boat sequence is arguably one of the best edited sequences ever. With the way it's cut together, the music, the way it's shot. It's also what really fascinated me about learning how to edit stuff. Because I remember after seeing this movie, I was like, I really want to know how to edit, and I just got so interested in learning what Angus Wall and Kirk Baxter did. They've obviously been working with Fincher since then. And Trent Reznor and Agus Ross have been working with Fincher since, I believe, Benjamin Button, which was the film he made prior to this. And yeah, I just adore the movie, and it moves so quickly. It's one of the fastest moving movies you will ever
Hmm.
see. There's never anyone that I've spoken to that says that this movie's slow. If anything, I would have loved more of this movie. I would have loved another hour added onto this, but
Yeah.
the 2 hours that we got were perfect. Nothing felt rushed. Nothing felt clunky. It was all put together so perfectly. And that's kind of hard to say when you watch a movie at this runtime. There's so much going on, but it doesn't feel that way. It flows so well.
Right.
And the team up of Fincher and Sorkin is one of the best that we've ever gotten. And they were going to do Steve Jobs together. David Fincher was going to direct Steve Jobs at one point, but then he dropped out. I think to do Gone Girl, and
Mm.
then um then Danny Boyle came on, and I mean, I'm grateful for that parent. But yeah, The Social Network, one of the best films ever made, one of the best scripts ever written, one of the best acted films ever. Just really one of the best films ever made. And also, I want to shout out Brenda Song because I'll be honest, when I saw the movie and I saw that she was in it, and I was realizing this is kind of a drama, I'm like, why the fuck is London Tipton in this movie? Like, she's such a klutz. She's an idiot. But hey, versatility, am I right? And the sequence in the apartment where she burns the scarf that Eduardo got her, I'm like, what? I'm like, can you act like this on Sweet Life? And I remember I watched an episode of Sweet Life. I think that aired that same weekend. So I was watching. I'm like, I just saw her cussing up a storm, burning a scarf, and making out with Andrew Garfield and doing other stuff to him in the bathroom. So I can't get that image out of my head. But yeah, I mean, everyone loves The Social Network. It's a great movie. And if you're someone out there that doesn't love The Social Network, I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you? I mean, hey, listen, you're allowed to have your own opinion, but really, why don't you love The Social Network? You should love it. So
yeah, that's a red flag.
Seriously, massive red flag. I remember a few years ago, I went on a date with this girl when I was in college, and she was talking about movies and everything. And she was like, "Oh, what are some movies you don't like?" And I'm like, I listed a few, but then I said, "What about you?" And she's like, "Oh, well, The Social Network." And I'm like, "I'm sorry, waiter, check."
Yeah, this ain't gonna work. No,
like, sorry, honey, got a dip.
Yeah,
and but yeah, Social Network, great film. So before we talk about some of the films that didn't make the cut, and really talk about Sorkin's other works, let's recap our list from 5 to 1. So, Jonathan, what is your list?
All right, number 5, Molly's Game. Number 4, Moneyball. 3, Steve Jobs. 2, A Few Good Men. And obviously, number 1 is The Social Network.
And to recap my list, coming in number 5 is The Trial of the Chicago 7. Number 4, Molly's Game. Number 3, Moneyball. Number 2, Steve Jobs. And number 1, of course, The Social Network. So that is it with our list. So to talk about some of the films that didn't make the cut, obviously, A Few Good Men, I put in my honorable mentions. You mentioned The Trial of the Chicago 7. So have you seen any of his TV work or no? I haven't seen anything that he's done for TV, but I think I should have brought that up in the start because he's obviously an acclaimed television writer. He's written some of the best reviewed shows of all time, The West Wing, Newsroom, classic. And he wrote every episode, I think, of The Newsroom. And that's just so weird for me to picture Jeff Daniels in a Aaron Sorkin project. But then I'm like, oh, wait, he was in Steve Jobs. So whenever I think of Jeff Daniels, I think of Dumb and Dumber right away. Just shows how low my IQ is clearly. But I've never watched any of the stuff he's done for television, but I've always wanted to check out both of those shows.
Yeah, I'm a notoriously bad TV watcher. I have seen one episode of The West Wing. I thought it was very good. And then I never
That's one more than me.
it speaks to, honestly, my TV watching habits. Like, I'll watch something, I'll think it's really good, and I'll just never go back to it for whatever reason. I've never seen The Newsroom outside of like one viral clip that went around on Twitter, which I think everyone knows probably what I'm talking about. But that's really all I've seen.
Yeah, same. I mean, I haven't seen anything from The West Wing, but The Newsroom, that clip, it definitely made me want to watch it, but I just haven't gotten a chance to get around to it. And I mean, it having Dev Patel in it, it makes it go a little higher on my list. But I mean, if he's not going to be shirtless like he was in The Green Knight, then I'm sorry, you're going to have to pass on this one. But I mean, I think now we should talk about being the Ricardos.
we got to.
All right. So for you, your thoughts on it?
Okay. I've had a roller coaster of emotions with this movie because, just to recap, social reactions came out for being the Ricardos before most people had actually seen it. And I think the majority of the social reactions were actually very positive from what I remember. It was like, oh, like Aaron Sorkin, this is great, like better than Chicago 7, like maybe his best directorial effort. And I was like, oh, great. Like I'm so excited now. I'm locked in. I watched the movie and I was like, it's solid. I don't know what I gave it. I was like 7 out of 10, whatever. I thought it was like average. I thought it was fine. And then the actual embargo dropped and like the Rotten Tomatoes score, which I don't really care about Rotten Tomatoes, but still it gives a nice snapshot of what people think. It was like in like the 50s.
Yeah, for a bit. Low to mid 50s.
Yeah. And then I was like, man, what the hell is actually going like, I know social reactions are sometimes a little bit inflated, but
Mm-hmm.
I really mostly saw just acclaim for being the Ricardos. And I was so confused. And I was like, what is this? Because I actually did like Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball, as someone who like actually for some reason like watched I Love Lucy and like followed it, even though I'm way past the age demographic for it. I actually thought she was actually pretty good. So I was very confused on that. And I think one thing that a lot of like film Twitter or people who follow the Oscars, even though we don't like to admit it, do is that I think the critical consensus of a movie genuinely influences how we feel mostly. With that being said, for some reason, I was kind of thinking about being the Ricardos as the Oscar season went along, and I kept putting in my predictions. And as I kept typing being the Ricardos at like number 10 for Best Picture or whatever, I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, why is this being nominated? Like again, like why is this even close? Like, why is this getting all these nominations here? And I rewatched it, and the things that I didn't like about it the first time, I ended up kind of hating about it. And overall, if you just straight up ask me, because I know I'm rambling, like, what do I think about being the Ricardos? I think it's whatever. And it's definitely his worst directorial movie. I really have no inclination to rewatch it, but I think it's just kind of whatever. And that's kind of its legacy. I think it's just whatever.
Yeah, when I went into the movie, I honestly had no expectations for it because even though I like pretty much everybody involved in the movie, and I have seen a few episodes of I Love Lucy, and Lucille Ball always seemed like a very interesting figure to me. I was just kind of thrown off with the casting of everybody, which is sad because I'm a big fan of Nicole Kidman and I like Javier Bardem as well. But I'm like, are
Mm-hmm.
these really the right fits for these people?
Yeah.
And for a long time, Aaron Sorkin was just writing this. Like, he wasn't going to direct this. And it wasn't until, like, maybe, like, a few months before they started filming this where he's like, oh, I'll direct it. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine, whatever. I liked Chicago 7 because, obviously, I hadn't seen Molly's Game at that point. But I'm like, okay. And then when they announced the cast, I'm like, oh, I like Nicole Kidman. I like Javier Bardem. And I like J.K. Simmons and everyone else in the cast. And then I saw footage from the movie and I'm like, oh, I don't know how it feels. So I'm going to go in low expectations. And then, like you, when those social media reactions came out, everyone was so positive about them. Obviously, there were some negative ones, but I mean, that's to be expected. But everyone was like really high on it. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of a good sign, but I'm still going to keep my expectations really low. And then, like you said, the Rotten Tomatoes score came out and everyone was like, mm-hmm. And then I saw the movie. I went to a screening for it in New York where there was a Q&A afterwards with Aaron Sorkin and the entire cast. It was a cool thing to go to, seeing all those people in person and everything, but I just didn't really care for the movie. I was like, it's okay. And then I thought about it more and I just started disliking it a lot more. And I think
Yeah.
what got me to really dislike it more was when Nicole Kidman won the Golden Globe. And I know that shouldn't matter, but I think once she won the Golden Globe, I'm like, oh, fuck. Is she going to win the Oscar? Let's hope not. And also at that point, too, I was like, I'm kind of
Yeah.
tired of seeing Nicole Kidman everywhere because she's in all these shows, all these movies. She's all over AMC. And I'm just like, can we please like stop with the Nicole Kidman train? Like, I'm just tired of seeing her everywhere. I like her, but I'd rather see her husband everywhere, not her. And that's a bad thing because I don't care about country music. But I I just really didn't like the movie. I just thought it was kind of boring. It did move quickly, but I just wasn't as compelled by the story. I think it's an interesting spin, but I don't think it was executed as well as it could have been. And I can't really tell if it's the script or the way it was directed. I still have a hard time figuring out if it was the script's fault or the directing's fault, even though they're both coming from the same person. Like, if this was directed by someone else, would this have been better? If it was written by someone else, would this have been better? And originally, the two people that they were going to have playing Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz were Kate Blanchett, who is one of the great actresses ever, and Oscar Isaac, who is
Yeah.
literally dad. That would have been a great parent. That would have been a fantastic parent, but
Yeah.
we can't always get what we want, can we? So, yeah, I'm not a fan of being the Ricardos, but that doesn't stop me from getting excited for whatever else he does next. I don't think it was the worst movie that came out last year. There are people that are like,
Right.
Being in the Ricardos was the worst movie of 2021, and Don't Look Up was the worst film of 2021. I actually really liked Don't Look Up. I really
I did
liked
too.
Don't Look Up. Like, I don't think it's a perfect movie by any means. I don't want anyone listening to be like, that's it, I'm done with this podcast because he said he liked Don't Look Up. It's not a perfect movie, but I enjoyed that. I was entertained enough. And that was a similar movie that, like, the social media reactions were pretty
Yeah.
divisive,
Yeah.
but, like, there were a lot of positive ones. And then
Yep.
everyone else saw the movie and they're like, this is terrible. This is shit. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. Well, maybe I'm just dumb. But yeah, being the Ricardos, not a fan. Not a fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Not really a fan. And I'd like to think that the critical consensus didn't sway me. But having said that, like you said, it's not the worst. I would rather watch Being the Ricardos than like House of Gucci again. So it's kind of one of those deals.
You would rather watch Being the Ricardos over House of Gucci? Is that what you just said?
I would.
I probably would too.
Oh, you're a
Because
fan.
well, I don't hate House of Gucci.
Yeah, I don't hate it either.
I thought it was entertained for what it was, but it really was really fucking long. It was really fucking long.
Yeah. That's the problem. It was just way too long. And like, I don't know if you saw, but I was like holding like a Twitter space, and I was talking with like Brother Bro from the Oscar Expert and a couple other people, and we were talking about like Lady Gaga for Best Actress when it looked like she could maybe win because she was getting like, is Lady Gaga like actually gonna win? And then the other people were chiming in, and then Gaga stands in the chat, screen recorded that, and then started like spreading it all over their like all over Twitter, saying like how dumb these people are and like how garbage they are. And apparently like they're like these three white men, and I was like, oh, it's crazy. I didn't realize I was like a white man. I didn't realize I was a white man there. But yeah, I thought Gaga was like the best part of Gucci, but yeah.
I also thought she was the best part of Gucci.
Yeah. Just a tangent, but
yeah. But yeah, I mean, Aaron Sorkin, even though he hasn't fully hit it as a director, like you said before, if you're just talking about his writing, one of the best writers we've ever gotten. And I do like that he has tackled film and television and stage. I really want to see his version of To Kill a Mockingbird. I think that would be really cool. I've heard great things about it from everybody I know that has seen it. And I know he's working on an adaptation of Camelot, which is interesting because he's never dealt with musicals before. So for the stage, I know he's doing that for the stage. But yeah, whatever Aaron Sorkin does next, I'll be there immediately. He's one of the great screenwriters we've ever gotten.
Yep.
And yeah, I'm a big fan of him.
Absolutely. There's really nothing more that needs to be said about Aaron Sorkin. As I said, he's my favorite writer. He'll go down as one of the best screenwriters, regardless of his directorial efforts that we just talked about. That can't tarnish his writing legacy. The Social Network alone puts you in like the history books. So
100% agree. So Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on today to talk about Aaron Sorkin. It was really great talking to you and me and you and just chatting it up about film, even though it was about a topic that, like you said, is very divisive nowadays. But I'm really glad that we got to talk about Aaron Sorkin because it made me realize, you know what? I am a fan of Aaron Sorkin. I do like him. Even though he has some duds, I can appreciate the good stuff that he's made.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like I said, The Social Network, it really covers all sins. It hit Molly's Game, Chicago 7, Being the Ricardos, they could have been 1-star movies, and I would still be like, he is one of the best writers we've ever had. So it covers all. He's good. He's set.
100%. So where could the people find you online?
Yeah, YouTube, Twitter, and Letterboxd. The Film Drunk. That's me. Hard to miss.
Awesome. And you guys can follow this show on any podcasting platform. Subscribe to it wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Twitter and Instagram. You guys can follow me on all social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Letterboxd at Bryan Suffield. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for joining us today for Film Fragments, and we will see you for the very next episode. Take care, everybody.